Alright, we're panning down the Cocksfoot without balansa treatment. I'm standing here in that treatment, and then across there is the paddock we've just been in, the balansa ryegrass treatment. So if we come back to, and you look down at the contrast, this Cocksfoot treatment is a lot less vigorous as far as the plantain's concerned. The Cocksfoot is competing strongly with the plantain. In contrast, you've got this very vigorous plantain in here, where the ryegrass hasn't been giving it much of a hard time at all. And so in here, the sub-clover obviously is stronger because there's no balansa to share resources with, and it would appear that the prolonged spelling for reseeding that we gave the balansa in the first spring, a bit under 2 years ago, has smothered the shorter sub-clover plants, because of course balansa can produce stems over 1 metre long, and when you spell it, it can be up to 1/2 metre or shin high anyway. And so the sub has been suppressed in there a bit, and maybe the grass as well. And there might be a lesson there about the interaction 2 years ago, or a bit under 2 years ago, of the spelled balansa tending to shade out the other components of the pasture. So it's something to watch out for. We're still learning about how to manage these top flowering annuals such as balansa, and it's early days as far as the management of those plants are concerned. We'll do some close-ups in this Cocksfoot sub-clover pasture now. Righto, here we are in the Cocksfoot sub-clover treatment, no balansa in here, and you can see the grass is starting to get fairly dominant. It's a bit of bare ground still, and the runners of the sub-clover will move around, and as the individual sub-clover plants grow and form a rosette and then have some runners, that will all be filled in. But the Cocksfoot is pretty good, but you can see here, after just 3 or 4 weeks of 3 weeks regrowth, that it's starting to shade the developing clover seedlings. So the management in late autumn really should focus on keeping that nibbled down, maybe a light set stocking at this time. Once the clovers have established, these have, is probably appropriate rather than a rapid rotational graze. There's been a lot of talk about when the vulnerability of sub-clover seedlings when they first germinate, and that's quite reasonable, because initially with the cotyledons, the main stem of the seedling, called the hypocotyl, is quite vulnerable to trampling and maybe sheep nibbling if they're really hungry. But where there's a reasonable amount of stuff to eat, I don't think they're going to be risking having 50% soil intake to try and eat the developing seedlings. But if you've had a sort of a desert of dry summer and things are very, very, very short, those seedlings will be vulnerable until they can pass the forefinger and thumb test, the old test to see if a sheep can pull a plant up, or if you just pull the leaves off. Well, clearly these are well past that vulnerable stage. We've been perhaps a bit conservative in our advice that you should have 4 or 5 leaves on an individual sub-clover seedling before you should graze. Maybe a couple of trifoliate leaves might be sufficient. The main thing is to make sure you can't easily pull the seedling up. I think that might be a better test in most cases. So long as things are well anchored, you can probably graze. Of course, you want everything to, the ideal is to spell it after the drought breaks, but sometimes some paddocks have to be sacrificed to some extent. in one paddock or another has to be first off the ice floe, to use a sort of a penguin analogy. We're a wee bit worried. I wonder if we can zoom in here. We've got some red leaves on the sub clover, and that's a virus that seems to debilitate some of the plants, but hopefully it won't be really prominent and spread all over the place. But it's a little bit of a worry. We don't know much about it, but we do know that some cultivars some varieties of sub clover are more vulnerable to that virus than others.